Welcome to the Nonprofit Voice, which is brought to you by Nonprofit Pro, the go-to resource for nonprofit management and strategy. In each episode, we'll sit down with nonprofit executives, consultants, and technology partners to learn more about the latest tactics, strategies, and trends in the nonprofit sector. As always, you can download all Nonprofit Voice episodes on Apple, Google, and Spotify. To be the first to know of new episode releases, follow us on social media and subscribe to our e-newsletter.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Mark Becker here, founding partner of Cathexis Partners. Looking forward, as always, to today's conversation. This is going to be about peer-to-peer fundraising, and have a great little panel of folks to talk about it. So let's get started. Karen, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and who you're with?
Sure. Hi, this is Karen Cincotti. I'm the Assistant Director of Web and Operations from the Roswell Park Alliance Foundation in Buffalo, New York. Raise money for the Regional Cancer Center and Hospital here in Buffalo.
And you do both your race for Ride for Roswell as well as several other campaigns, right?
Yes, we have three main peer-to-peer events, raising over probably $8 million collectively, and then lots of DIYs. And I'm also involved with anything to do with annual fund and operations. So,
nice.
Damn it.
All right. Activity. Well, thanks for joining us, Mary.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Mary Sorensen. I am the Director of Field Resource Development for NAMI National, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. I've been with NAMI for about 3 years, but I've spent my entire career in the peer-to-peer space. And in my role, I direct the strategy, the planning, and implementation of NAMI's field-facing fundraising development programs. And that's our NAMI Walks program and our newly launched NAMI Do It Your Way program.
Nice. And last but not least, Noel.
Thanks, Mark. Hi, I'm Noel Beebe. I'm the Director of Client Strategy at Nuclevis. Been in the peer-to-peer space quite a while, starting
we go way back.
In the early aughts, right? With Convio, which of course was a fundraising peer-to-peer platform that eventually became purchased by Blackbaud. So worked there on the TeamRaiser platform for many years, and then went over to put my background into practice at the Alzheimer's Association, managing the digital fundraising team there, supporting our peer-to-peer programs, and joined Nuclevis about a year ago, working with all of our clients using our peer-to-peer fundraising mobile app.
Nice. And you guys recently, like in June, I think it was, came out with a study, and I read that and thought, oh, we need to turn this into a podcast. So tell us a little bit about the study, what led you to do it, and what you were looking to find and what you did find.
Yeah, absolutely. I am just a giant data nerd. So I always am looking to use data to back up my hunches, to develop strategies, to figure out how well people are doing, and try to kind of forecast trends that are happening in the space. And on the heels of coming back from peer to peer, which we attended back in February, we had heard that in 2023, participant numbers were growing in spades, but fundraising wasn't growing as quickly. And so a few months after that, I was just kind of thinking, how are we doing in 2024? What's that going to look like moving forward? And a year is a long time to wait for new data. So, even though we don't have access to the same amount of metrics and data that Marcy and the team at Peer-to-Peer do, we decided to put out a survey to friends in the peer-to-peer space, and those that had attended the peer-to-peer summit, and ask, what are you seeing? How are spring campaigns performing? What trends are you seeing emerge? What challenges are you dealing with? And so we did that, and we got a really good response. And I can happy to tell you a little bit about the findings if that's where we want to go next.
Yeah. So I saw. Let's start with the how spring season was looking, and that was encouraging to see that both fundraising and participation was up in the majority of the survey respondents, right?
Yeah, it was. So I think about 70% of the people that we talked to with spring campaign said that fundraising was up, and about 60% said that participant counts were up as well. So in my mind, that's really great. When we looked beyond that into the fall, things weren't quite as rosy. We did see some a little bit of slowness going into participation growth, but fundraising trends were still on the rise. But I know, Mary, you guys had some spring events, and you guys were doing pretty well there. Do you want
We
to?
did. Yeah, we have the inside knowledge because we have a spring season and a fall season. And I agree with you. Participants made us sweat it out a little bit. It was really that 4 weeks before walk that we really saw participation pick up. But the numbers were lagging a little bit earlier in the season, but it seems like people are coming and they're coming back. It's just taking them a little bit longer to get activated this year.
And so compared to previous years that you saw later registration, but registration was up.
Registration is up. Yeah, we paced about 14% ahead in our participants in the spring,
Nice.
which is
Okay.
fantastic. But we were behind all season until about a month out from our biggest walk weekend. So we were a little nervous throughout the season, but it really skyrocketed. Same trend in the fall we're seeing. We're about a month out, and our participants just went positive for the first time on the weekly report in a while. So mirroring the spring season, but it was definitely a slower start.
Making you sweat, right?
Making me sweat. Yeah. I am
Looking at
also
all the
a
communications and
self-proclaimed
everything.
data nerd, just like Noel. I love my data. I love watching the trends. And yeah, that weekly report is something that we live by.
And then Karen, the ride for Roswell is more of a, you consider that summer, that's June, right?
End of June. So right, that is kind of our summer. So, but what we open in January though, and we had the same thing. It's so much slower than it used to be, and starting up, and we had more registrations in May this year but we were down January, February, and March, and then it finally picked up in May. We always have that last month. But at the same time, there was much more delayed reaction to registering. And we were like, what's going on? What's going on? So we right there with you, Mary. So it's interesting. I think, I don't have data behind this, guys, but I think now people, after what's happened with COVID, like they don't want to make plans ahead of time anymore because who knows what's going to happen. That's my
That's
own
fair.
gut. It's my gut.
Things are so much more electronic now and
Yeah.
immediate too. So I feel like where people used to have to kind of not necessarily door to door but like host events to earn their money. And now with, QR codes and text messages and easy links and Facebook fundraisers, it's just, I think people don't need the runway that they might have used to 20 years ago to get the same effect. So I'm hoping that might be playing part of it too, is that we're just making it easier to raise money faster.
Nice thought.
Let's go.
Got it. Yeah. Another thing that the report leaned into is a topic that that definitely always comes up, or should, is those pesky $0 fundraisers, right? Great that they're participating, but let's be a fundraiser, and what does that approach look like? And how much do you communicate with them before you just kind of go, got it? You just want to be there on the day. But yeah, kind of what was the report showing about that side of things, Noel?
Yeah, that was one of the key challenges. Actually, the number one challenge that we heard from the respondents to the survey was that trying to get people off the $0 mark was a challenge more now than it has been in the past. Um, my hunch is that some of that has to do with the decline of Facebook fundraisers, where people used to be able to register, go into their participant center, click one button, and have their entire, network of people know that they were fundraising. And Facebook gave such a high visibility to those fundraisers at the time. I think it was just really easy. It's really plug and play. There's really no other tool that's out there that kind of takes the having to ask piece out of the hand of the participant and just put it out there. So that's my hunch, is that the $0 fundraiser increase is due to that social media is not giving it the same weight to fundraisers as they have in the past. But we heard a lot of other things too. People were just having trouble getting a hold of people and reaching out and getting people on the phone or texting. But I'd love to throw it over to Karen and Mary and hear, what challenges that you guys had with that $0 piece.
We had, yeah, it was a big piece for us, especially for the ride this past year. So in 2019 and prior, we had always had a minimum for the ride. And then COVID came and we took away the minimum, and then it became lax. And every year that $0 fundraising percentage was growing and growing. And in 2023, it got to up to like 17%. And so we were really commissioned with bringing that down. And, why were not people not raising? And I think to some extent, we made it a community event, come and join your fellow community members and, let's honor these survivors and raise money to end cancer. But not everybody was getting that raise money part. So we really, really had to push this year, and we did get it down to 13%. So we were like, okay, we wanted 12, but we were very, very happy with 13. But I think did we make it too easy for people? To be just sign up and come on board? Or was it a combination of it becoming this community event and, they didn't understand it? But we gave a lot this year on impact, the importance of those fundraising dollars, and every dollar means $23 in grant money. So it was just very, very much at the forefront of our efforts this year. And, we were very happy with that decrease.
Yeah. And it's all relative, right? Because I'm sure your average walk or 5K director is like 17%. I wish of 0%.
Right. Mm-hmm. Correct.
But
correct.
yeah, coming from
Mm-hmm.
where you were, where it was
Mm-hmm.
required, minimum, that's a whole different thing. Mary, how about yourself? What were you seeing?
Same. I think, we saw so many participants coming back during the pandemic. We had a lot more fundraisers. We had less participants, but they were activated in fundraising. Then we saw the wave of participants coming back, and it was wonderful. But with that came, again, that rise of the $0 participant. We really leaned into storytelling, very similar, just using that mission. We actually made our entire campaign this year all about, I am NAMI Walks. I am the person behind this mission. It was very storytelling informed, and in all of our messaging was really about the people behind the mission. I think that really resonated with people because we are seeing earlier activation with fundraising. We did some early season challenges with getting people not only registered, but registered and fundraising, just to kind of get them started and get the ball rolling. But yeah, it has been a bigger struggle with the participant numbers growing so dramatically and so quickly, catching up and making those personal relationships and getting them activated.
Yeah, and it kind of ties back in, I'm sure, to that first topic of seeing people register later, and so you have less runway to communicate with them, right? And share
Absolutely.
those stories and get them to help fundraise.
Yes, by the time a walk manager is 4 weeks out from their event, that ability to pick up the phone and steward, and it drops as the logistics needs and whatnot pick up. So ideally you're seeing people 8+ weeks before, but it's just not the trend, and things just kind of had to be adapted based on that. And the storytelling piece is kind of at the core of all things peer-to-peer fundraising, and so I think leaning into the basics has really, really helped with that.
Yeah, good. And then that kind of leans into another key takeaway that I saw in the study, which is retention, right? Not only throughout the season, but year over year, and getting those returning participants. What were you finding in the results there, Noel?
Yeah, so nearly half of the people that we spoke with said that they were having trouble getting people to come back from one year to the next. We also heard that a lot of people were having trouble acquiring new participants. So it's kind of funny because we heard in 2023 there was such this growth, and especially the top 30 events out there that they've been seeing a lot of participants coming, but then either maybe the event didn't resonate with them, or they weren't willing to come back again, or they didn't want to fundraise again and hit up their network again. But I think what's core there is that we also kind of forgot how to build relationships and maintain relationships during the pandemic. We all stayed home and we didn't go anywhere. And that is not really how peer-to-peer works. You have to have staff and volunteers in those local communities to build those relationships. And I think we really suffered a big loss there. So I think that also speaks to, that last challenge that we heard about, which was the staffing crisis that we're experiencing throughout nonprofit. And not just in nonprofit, there's staffing crisis in multiple industries. But, I've heard of so many people changing jobs, or heard of layoffs, or I've heard of people being unhappy and looking for other jobs. That, we're not keeping those key people in place to build those relationships. And, outreach to their community or make those fundraising calls and ask people to come back again year over year.
Yeah. So Mary, what are you and your team doing to retain year over year participants and staff for that
Yeah,
matter?
absolutely. We have a large variance of capacity at NAMI. Being a federated model, we have, small volunteer-led walks and then very large staff-driven events as well. So we've really had to learn to coach based on that capacity level of meeting the need of keeping the relationships as personal as possible, but understanding what our field staff is able to do, especially with a lot of turnover. So we really leaned into, for acquisition and retention, two key audiences. Our corporate sponsorship has been through the roof since the pandemic, which not all organizations can say, but the conversation around mental health in the workplace, in the home, in schools has really resonated with companies. So in terms of acquisition, in terms of teams, we leaned into companies very heavily, knowing that their employee resource groups, that their companies that we're sponsoring might want to engage their workers to show the community that they're rallying behind mental health. And then for retention, we had a very small but mighty population in our VIP fundraisers. We call them our walk stars. They raise 1,000 or more for our events. And it's only 2% of our walkers, but they're raising 40% of our funds. And so it was a very tangible amount of people that they could lean into and build those relationships with and steward to maintain those relationships, given the limited capacity and the turnover.
It always helps to be able to break those segments down and figure out how to communicate to the different groups. And that's definitely a group you want to keep close, right? And keep happy.
Yeah, I always say it's a very easy to steward, but at the same time, losing even one or two, it's an asset, and it's scary because it can dip your numbers dramatically, just losing, one or two of those VIPs.
How about you, Karen? What are you up to over there at Roswell?
Well, for our endurance ride, which is a 7-day ride from New York City to Niagara Falls, that one, alumni come back, but that means they have to commit another week again of their life, and they also have to raise another $3,500. So there's not the retention rate that we might find in the ride. But one of the things we did this year to get just alumni to come back was we offered and really promoted a 2-day version of the ride. So they could join us on Thursday for the last 2 days and be part of the camaraderie. Their minimum was less, but it kept them engaged, and they really enjoyed that opportunity to really, and we promoted it to them because it was also our 10th anniversary. So, and now they're still with us and we still got some of their fundraising. It really helped push us over the edge for that. And then for the ride, one of the things we noticed with that, we have a 60% return rate typically every year to year. But over 5 years, like if we look back at 2019 or 18 or whatever it was, it's only 30 or 40% of the people are coming back overall, for this year. So we really strive to do look back further to our past riders and communicate to them specifically with targeted language. We haven't seen you in a while. We haven't, come back. It's the whatever, this cool stuff that's happening this year, and the impact. The impact was important to them once before. So we want to remind them about the impact and what they can do and to join us again. So we definitely had more of those older riders coming back to join us.
Yeah, that's cool. Bringing the alum back for the 10th and all, and always kind of changing it up a little bit, right? Making the experience fresh, but still connected to what they experienced in the past, but always trying to put. And it's a challenge for all you guys, and impressed that you can do it year over year and come up with fresh ideas. And more power to you. I can't do it, but I love seeing it, and I love being a small part of the community and everything that's new ideas that are brought in, because peer-to-peer fundraising has definitely come a long way. And Mary, you mentioned recently launching DIY campaigns and all that, and it's always just finding new ways to allow people to fundraise however they want to, whenever they want to, right?
Absolutely. Being able to turn your passion into purpose is just invaluable. I think people just really resonate with being able to do something that they love for a cause that means a lot to them. And, NAMI National had DIY for years, but being able to bring it to the field, having it integrated into the communities on the ground, has just been really inspirational to see this year. People are creative and just much more than you would think when it comes to this stuff. So it's been very, very special to see it evolve over the year.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, we could talk about these topics, get deeper into Facebook fundraising and the staffing issues and all the other things you found in the report, but only so much time for these things. So kind of let's wrap it up with some final thoughts. Noel, you want to kind of kick it off as far as any other points or any other thoughts as we look into the end of this year and into 2025?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Karen hit the nail on the head. We're talking about being willing to change what we've done in the past because it may not be serving us anymore. So with them doing a 2-day, version of their ride in addition to the 7-day, I think that's just, the perfect example of saying, hey, we can still maintain these relationships. We can get these people back if we just do it a little bit differently. So I think that's a key that we're seeing throughout the industry at Nucleavis. We also, obviously lean into mobile as the key technology that we should be giving our participants to do their fundraising. We're seeing huge increases in people using QR codes and text messaging specifically to fundraise. So as channels like Facebook are decreasing, these are channels that are increasing. So we're talking to clients all the time about, what are the things, where are you seeing the trends going down, and what new tools are you bringing in, and how are you coaching your participants in new ways that really meet them where they are?
I like it. Yeah, mobile first, right? And that
Yeah.
with peer to peer, you have to. I mean, it's everybody's on your phone, right?
Yeah.
You have to be there. Mary, any final thoughts?
Same. We are leaning into mobile first this year. We're just trying to meet our participants where they are and stay relevant in this ever evolving space. And so I would just say that, having had that perspective of a spring season, and we just had our first fall event, that participants are still there. They're still passionate and just staying connected in your communities. And it's looking like another successful season.
I don't know how it's possible, but being in Florida, I'm glad fall is finally here.
Yes.
Looking forward to that. You on the other end of the map, Karen, though, I'm sure you're not
Yeah.
feeling quite the same way about fall up in New
Yeah,
York. But any final thoughts?
It'll be snowing before you know it, exactly. But I think it's what we've all kind of touched on is just being open to this change and these ideas. Facebook has been a huge drop for us in terms of just actual dollars. But then now we're teaching people to just share your link, like we just need it still on Facebook, but let's not rely on them. And we're trying to encourage them to actually promote it themselves, so we have to constantly figure out what's the new ways to do things to help us. And also going back to Mary's point too, and Noel's about talking to them in different ways, making sure they're getting notifications in their app and texting them. We're doing a lot with texting them because everybody reacts differently to what they read. And first of all, they don't read much of anything. So you have to get them very quickly. Video is huge in texting to tell a quick story or to include a graphic with your texting. And hopefully then they'll read that one little thing before they click on the link. So it's constantly evolving, which makes our work exciting.
I love it. Well, that's a great note to end on. Well, thank you so much, all three of you, for joining today. Great conversation. Thanks, everybody, for listening in. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Thanks, you too.
Thanks for listening. Listen to more episodes at nonprofitpro.com as well as on Apple, Google, and Spotify.